connecting to the internet.
Internet.
Networking software.
World Wide Web thing on a computer today.
Computer.
Net Surfer Pro.
Next up is Case Hate Red, or Case Hatred. So, Case Hate Red, we're back to Adam. Adam is on tour with his orchestra. He's got his violin he got from his mother. It's a priceless heirloom. He's got slugs in his eye. Slugs coming out of the eye. Black rectangles painted on mirrors. The new viral internet fad, the new meme of the day is to paint black rectangles on your mirror.
I just don't understand kids these days. First Skibbity Toilet and now this.
Yeah, I do love that we have streamer cults and now we just have memes.
Yeah.
The new form of ritual. Adam starts playing the music, and as it's going on, more people get off key, off time. People stop playing, and he's just like, nah, I'm got this. I'm a good violinist. I'm just going to keep playing Shostakovich. And then he realizes nobody else is playing. He opens his eyes. Nobody's moving. The conductor, all the players, all the audience is staring directly at him, and he doesn't think they're human.
Yeah, he's like, these aren't humans. These are like lumps of flesh that are pinkish brown and have a mass on top of their head. But they're not human, and then he, realizes they're staring at me because whatever just happened to them hasn't happened to me.
And then he's like, wait, that is humans. He's just describing humans, which I love. It's like they have flaps on their heads and protrusions with 5 smaller protrusions to help grip, and it's funny because this is literally what it meant when it said that 3125's victims are unable to be perceived as human. We are seeing the direct consequence of that in POV, and Adam's resilience, his resistance to it. So he flees as the whole orchestra is trying to attack him and pin him down to cut off his fingers.
And they're not even necessarily running. It's mentioned that they're just kind of briskly walking.
Yeah. He flees, he leaves into a bathroom in the building where he realizes the mirror has been blacked out already, but he couldn't see it. He couldn't see that it had been blacked out. It was a normal mirror to him.
Yeah.
And he realizes that billboards and signs all around the city have also been blacked out. So he calls these doorways. He compares it to looking down a dark hallway. That it's doorways for 3125 to enter our world, essentially. But also, blacking out all these things is sort of making people forget humanity. Blacking out a billboard is forgetting things like information of phone numbers or websites, or just, it blocks out products, and maybe that's a good thing, but even then, that's still part of human life. Blocking out signs includes directions or businesses or things like that, and blocking out mirrors, most importantly, means you are unable to recognize your own body.
Yeah.
That by blacking out all these different things, it is contributing to forgetting humanity in that way I mentioned earlier. In addition, it's redaction.
Yeah.
There's something incredibly interesting about how the Foundation's process of redacting so much information is, in a way, a contribution to 3125.
Yeah. Or at the very least, a very close parallel, a sort of, we aren't so dissimilar, you and I.
Exactly, yeah. And this is also interesting because the redactions are used to make the readers not have the full picture, which again is a very common part of cosmic horror, of not knowing. And if 3125 makes you forget everything other than it, in a way, you are forgetting things like the results of an incident or an escape, or details about this thing. Compare that to 2256, which used redactions to show the effects of an antimemetic hazard affecting the article itself.
Yeah.
We are seeing that here. It's compared as well to the tombstones, quote unquote. And yeah, that the black boxes in the monument were tombstones, as Marion put it, signifying death, but they had markings that Marion couldn't see. Similarly here, the world is dying, essentially, and these black markings on the mirrors and signs are themselves tombstones, covering up somebody's existence to instead memorialize their death, but it does also cover the information that they once held.
Yeah.
That death is forgetting, essentially. Tombstones are a memorial, but a blank tombstone doesn't really help anyone, and that's essentially what's happening here.
Yeah.
This will get explained in another chapter in more detail, But yeah, essentially, Adam gets fucked up.
Yeah, Adam, like, slowly and eventually does kind of succumb to, like, it's not necessarily that he succumbs, it's that people catch him and...
That he sucks cum.
Oh, no. People catch him and, like, the details end up being mass blocked out.
With a chisel.
With a chisel.
It's like somebody with a chisel, black box.
Yeah. And so, like, you know, he ends up falling victim to 3125 as well, except...
Well, before we get to that,
Oh.
before the except, for one thing, in the middle of the black box text, there's a passage that mentions in the center of the city where people can be fed in. It's later revealed what these are. They're like these big concrete structures that they call like, oh God, I don't remember what they're called. But they make sounds that give you nightmares. It's really fucked up. But there's also another like unconnected, non-quantum antimemetic thing, which is like a tree in several city centers that is avoided and can't be seen by most people except its victims, who are like forced to think about the tree and are drawn to the tree to be fed to the tree.
It's the special tree.
Sort of. It's kind of like, it really makes me think of something from Monument Mythos.
Yeah, like the special tree?
Yeah.
The special tree from Monument Mythos
Yes.
that I just referenced?
Not necessarily that tree, but just in general, yes.
Honestly, yeah, it's more like the Washington Monument in Monument Mythos. But
Yeah.
I guess the Washington Monument was also, I think, built on a special tree. Anyway.
That's a previous episode. So it goes into Ara Oraun, which is a Yoruba term meaning person in the realm of the ancestors, where Ara Oraun is Adam blacking out, the chapter where he blacks out. Another thing, really quick. So here's my big digital interactive media extrapolation about this. So I think the outside outbreak started with Adam.
Ah.
So remember the whole thing of everyone who thinks like you. 3125 targets the person who notices it and everyone of a similar like position or connection, including family. Additionally, there's like a few parts where it's mentioned that Adam and Marion have like the same headspace. They have the same wavelength. So they go out of their way to illustrate that Adam and Marion think like each other.
Yeah.
And so when Marion was the one to escape the 3125 containment unit with her memories of 3125 intact, the person who thinks like her the most is Adam. And while it's clear that there's signs of this already starting, like things starting to be painted black.
And slugs coming out of his eyes as well, I think.
Yeah, but I think like the actual outbreak happens on stage with Adam.
I do like that idea because the fact that it happens with his traveling troupe does kind of like lend itself to the idea of people who think like him would also include musicians and people who would go to a music hall. So like, yeah, that's an interesting idea that I like.
Yeah. Okay, so Unthreaded is the next one, where we're introduced to MTF Auroran.
Anyway.
This is a really fun bit. This is the concept of when somebody dies, the memories of them are still in the noosphere. So their consciousness is more or less transmitted to the noosphere, where they are idea ghosts. And of course, the Foundation agents have committed to being in a post-death idea angel ghost agent task force.
Yeah. Once you die, you go to a kind of heaven where you can continue your work.
You continue to think. And they can also influence events. In this article, there's a bit that mentions Operation Cold City. Clicking on that is a link to an article that's a retelling of Case Colorless Green and Your Last First Day, the events of the end of Part 1, from the perspective of this mobile task force, where it's revealed that a lot of freak things happen because they're interfering with the world.
Yeah.
Like, someone writes a message to Marion on a wall saying to, like, avoid Paul Kim as she's coming out of the containment unit. And this is also where it's revealed, by the way, you know that alien laser gun?
Yeah.
That creates the goddamn maggots and worms The antimemetic worms are created when the alien ray gun shoots things. It doesn't make them disappear. It turns them into worms. The worms that are, by the way, on every biome.
Oh, that implies that has very good implication, because that implies that like these were weapons that were alien but were used on Earth, which
everywhere on Earth.
Everywhere on Earth. Interesting.
Yeah, I love that little reveal because it takes what was already a very clever and just funny idea
and adds an entire new layer to it.
And it doesn't have to explain much else.
Yeah.
It uses like very few sentences, all things considered. And it doesn't outright state like, this was used by an alien civilization all around Earth. You just kind of come to that conclusion.
I entirely missed this because I read the physical version of the story. I read the story in the physical book. That is super cool.
Yeah. So that part's really great. So Adam wakes up in a school and he gets a phone call from someone named Ulrich.
Yeah.
He describes that it sounds like a machine-generated voice of a woman, and it turns out Ulrich is able to interfere with phone signals and electric signals to message people.
Yeah.
That is her post-death situation. Talking about this mobile task force is super interesting. I have a few notes on them. One is that this plays along with an idea that I really love and is part of the Borges short story, The Witness. The Witness referenced. But the Borges short story, The Witness, is essentially about how, people don't die when they're killed, they die when they're forgotten.
Yeah.
That, there is one person who will be the last person to have witnessed Jesus Christ's life, and they will die at some point. And that's sort of what the idea behind this is that the people who remember the people who died are responsible for keeping alive the mobile task force.
Yeah.
They have what they're called anchors, which are these people who are alive or also in the mobile task force who remember them strongly enough to keep their idea intact. The idea of someone you have after death is what survives in this case, which is a very sort of comforting, in a weirdly scientific and atheistic way of being you'll always have them in your heart. It's that, there is an afterlife, and it's created by the people remembering the loved ones they lost.
Yeah.
This is also very similar to the concept of a constant in Lost. Someone who makes you, remember and keeps you grounded. In Lost, there's the bits with, Desmond getting unstuck in time, and he knows where he is because of having a constant, someone he can connect to. In that case, it is... I want to say Faraday, but it's also Penny. It's kind of unclear on that point. In this, in a way, you could think of Marion's constant or anchor being Adam.
Yeah. Now, it is noted that when Marion does go to the Noosphere.
Yeah.
But she's completely ravaged by the Class C's. The Class C's have, half killed her even in her afterlife. She's somewhat useless, and there's a fucker named Sanchez who's, the unofficial head who regards her as basically just kind of a failure, and it takes Ulrich caring about her to be fine, I guess we'll keep her around.
Yeah, they start realizing that as they're losing more ground to 3125, they have to split apart to not be attacked in the Noosphere. So they split into smaller and smaller subgroups until Ulrich is alone with Marion. And that's when Ulrich decides to call Adam. So Marion wakes up and mentions Adam, and Ulrich's wait, Adam, you're fucking right, there's Adam. I gotta see what Adam's doing. And Ulrich actually catches Adam while he's part of 3125, but rescues him and does brain surgery on him.
Yeah, she realizes, there's still a light inside, and so does, metaphysical brain surgery over the course of weeks to get him to wake him up, as we see first from his side.
And then we have, after all this is explained, it gets to, again, Adam waking up and getting one of the most heartbreaking moments.
Yeah. So
Ulrich tells him to go into one classroom in particular where there's a light on.
Yeah, she says there's a woman who's dying and you need to go see her. And so Adam goes into the classroom. There isn't a body in there, but there is a chalkboard that begins rapidly, essentially animating. It's described that it's like somebody is drawing something and then erasing 5 times, 10 times a second. So it's essentially being animated, and it's a face of Marion.
Mm-hmm.
And Adam recognizes her.
Mm-hmm.
And she more or less tells Adam, like, I failed.
Yeah.
I failed, and the world has gone to shit, and I'm so sorry. And it's like you said, it's just fucking heartbreaking. And eventually, Adam blacks out again. Like, the blackboard stops updating.
Yeah.
And he blacks out again, wakes up to another call from Ulrich, who asks him, like, hey, do you remember, before I talk to you, do you remember the name Marion Hutchinson for any reason? And he's like, not particularly, why? And Ulrich's like, no reason, anyway.
Well, it's a bit more than that. Adam, like, curls up into the fetal position and essentially is himself ready to give up. Because Marion is dead, the love of his life is dead.
Yeah.
Everyone else in the world is dying or is overridden, and he doesn't see any point to fighting back anymore. And Ulrich is trying to convince him, like, no, the fact that you are alive means that there is still hope, and Adam doesn't want to. He blacks out, and it's kind of implied that Ulrich did some brain fuckery again, essentially. The conversation you talked about happens after Adam blacks out again, after this conversation. So it's kind of implied she, like, just kind of poked and prodded and removed the memories of Marion.
Yeah, it was just like, well, if he, I need somebody who's not willing to accept defeat.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, she gives him directions, gives him as much advice as she can before she herself dies, and he says something to the effect of, like, if nobody else remembers you, I'll make sure to, which is also very sweet. Adam's very good.
He will be her witness, her anchor, her constant.
Aww.
Hey, quick thing, really quick. We're recording this after the previous part of the episode, so the audio's different. Then sorry, but not sorry. So next up we have Wild Light, which is a flashback episode. Woo!
Oh boy, so do you remember the room that 3125 is in? Quote unquote?
You mean not in?
Yeah, of course. That isn't in. Well, it turns out it wasn't just the head of the department that was supposed to go there. In fact, the head of the department was supposed to meet the people there, including...
Right. So, including, well, an overseer.
Yeah, like one of the O5.
Michael Lee, which was the Antimemetics Division chief, and Bart Hughes.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So, okay, first off, this is not the 3125 containment facility. This is a different one.
Oh, wait, yeah. This is an entirely different one.
Second off, this is in the hollowed out bones of that, like, giraffe SCP-2256. That is... I love that bit. The reason why Bart's units are so sleek and white, as commented on by Marion in the first part of Antimemetics, is because they're literally made of bone.
Yeah.
It's so cool using the antimemetic properties of these dead giraffes they keep finding.
Yeah, like it makes logical sense as well. I mean, well, okay, logical is a stretch, but it makes narrative sense to kind of tie it all together in that way. And it also makes some, like, I think it does make an amount of sense in, like, how do you build a containment facility that is itself antimemetic? It's probably very difficult, but if you use something that itself is already antimemetic as the building material, significantly easier. Mm-hmm. It's great. It logically flows.
Yep. I love, so they call this a Vegas room because whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. That's a great term. Yeah. I love made up lingo within made up, like, groups and organizations.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It follows one of the overseers going into this. I believe they're met by Bart Hughes outside the building.
I want to say that we follow Bart Hughes into the building,
right?
Narratively.
Yeah. So, okay, yeah, they meet Bart Hughes. They go into the building, and they are given, like, they have to make sure they're not taking any notes. They don't have anything to take notes on them with. And then they put what is called a germ on their face, but it's like a big eyeball with 4 pupils.
Yeah.
It's like a cyclops with 4 eyes within the cyclops' 1 eye.
It's like Vriska from Homestuck.
It's not like Vriska from Homestuck.
It's like 1/2 of Vriska from Homestuck.
It seems to cover their face. The bit is that, like, the germ acts as a filter for like processing information, and all of these short-term memories are stored in the germ.
Yeah.
So they can't develop long-term memories based on what they see. It's a veil that they use to prevent themselves from knowing what they're seeing and doing in the Vegas room. Super fucking weird. So they go in, they all sit down, and they kind of bring out their briefing notes on previous meetings. They all get to business, and, well, it's 2008. This is also before Class Z nest were invented, and they're all talking about 3125 and how fucked up it is. Bart realizes how bad this is, and he's like, okay, we have to make another Vegas room that's way bigger, and we gotta create a device that can essentially create a super weapon to take this thing down. And the overseer is like, you already said this.
Yeah. Yeah, like, the narrative is that we're following Bart Hughes, and the rest of them have been doing the meeting for a little bit, and so he comes in, and they're all catching him up to speed, essentially. But in the sense that they're making him come to his own conclusions. And so he's like, well, I could probably solve this if I had a containment facility the size of West Virginia and $100 billion. And they're like, yeah, that's already in the notes. You've already suggested exactly this.
Yeah. As they're going through, somebody also mentions, like, wouldn't it also suck if, like, one of us died?
Yeah.
Like, then not only would the project be in jeopardy, but we're the only ones who know about 3125's danger. And so, like, while we're all here in this enclosed space where no one can see what's going on, you know, it'd be a real shame if someone dies. And then Michael Lee pulls out an actual gun and shoots Hughes.
Well, okay, so first...
Oh, right, yeah.
So the important thing here is that why Hughes gets shot is that as they're discussing, Hughes essentially goes like, well, okay, if I had a team that was dedicated, and if I myself was in the room for, 2 years or whatever, I could probably build it. And they're like, okay, so we're gonna do that then? And he's like, wait, no, you can't do that to me. That's literally just prison. You're describing prison.
It's like, you wrote down in your contract that you would do it last time.
Yeah, you signed this volunteer form last time that said,
right here
I will...
It's right here in the notes. You're the only one who can do this.
And that's when he gets shot.
Yeah. I also love, while he's saying this, it makes a note of that Marion starts playing with a pen, like clicking it and unclicking it.
Yeah.
So Michael Lee shoots Bart Hughes in the chest, shoots the overseer in, like, the shoulder, but misses. And by that point, Marion has stabbed Michael Lee in the neck with a pen.
Yeah.
Another neck stabbing, but this time it was for the greater good. It wasn't for cult reasons.
Yeah.
I also love, as they're going in, Bart's like, where's the bodyguard for the overseer? And then it turns out that the overseer's car is like a transformer.
Yeah.
That turns into like a mech suit and burns open the door using like a laser beam. And Marion's holding the gun by the time Michael Lee's already dead, and the overseer has to scramble to get the mech suit car transformer to not kill her.
Yeah.
Good thing that he was able to stop it before that happened.
Unfortunately, Bart Hughes, the only man who can solve this problem, is dead. Large sigh.
Yeah. I also want to note, by the way, a bunch of spiders start coming in and descending from the sky during this. Like, right before they're able to administer their anestics.
Yeah.
Also, at some point, one of the people mentions that 3125 is a thing that looks wrong, colorless, and furious, which is another Chomsky reference to colorless green ideas sleep furiously.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is fun. Next up is Brain/Blood, which is Adam once again on his quest to go to the site where, well, presumably Bart would be, because note that the site the meeting was at Site 167, which is not the normal Antimemetics Division site.
Yeah.
Meaning there has to be more than one big Vegas bunker built than the one that was empty earlier, with just Marion and the nuke.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of fun stuff. Adam learns about safe SCPs, in just explaining what that really means.
I believe that this is the one that has, like, my favorite line in the entire thing. where he gets to, so what happens is he gets to Site 41, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Which is the site that the anti-memetic warhead was detonated on.
Yeah.
Which is super interesting, because it's described as, like, essentially there's an informal dome where all of the hell that's happening just kind of stops.
There's also, like, no trees or anything. There's been no overgrowth throughout the site.
Yeah, like, even the plants cannot recognize the site as a place to grow to, which is so neat. But he gets, one of the phones or whatever in the SCP Foundation and gets some access to it. And there's a line that's like, it's weirdly engaged, it was weirdly engaging. And at that point, I both laughed and kind of rolled my eyes a little bit of just like, okay, SCP Foundation wiki writer Quantum.
Yeah. He goes through Site 41, sees a bunch of things written on the walls that he doesn't understand. These are the messages about Mr. Gray that were written by Gray's victims. Then he eventually makes his way to the elevator. He finds Marion's dead body there, along with, the nuke that had gone off and nothing much else. It's interesting to note that during this, he mentions, like, he should be afraid, but he can't bring himself to be afraid. Something along those lines?
Yeah.
And I like to think this is because of Ulrich's weird mind surgery that she did on Adam.
Yeah. This is also a fun section because it's not explicitly stated in the chapter, but if you go back to the 3125, like at the beginning of this whole saga, Adam leaves the note that he, left at the beginning of the chapter. And so it's a really fun experience to, like, go back to it after and reread the note and be like, oh, that's what he was talking about. Oh, that's what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so he also notices around this point a golden white light in his, like, eye, which I like to think is the SCP that Marion had tamed being around her dead body.
Yeah.
After she had passed. Now that he's in Site 41, 3125 more or less has found the site.
Yeah.
And he needs to book it. Shit gets bad. Ulrich and some of the other Ara Around task members help out in the ways that they're able to do so. Doing, like, ghost tricks, essentially. So one of the things is that laser beam that punched a hole in the wall. We were hinting about what it means, like, in the previous episode. But here it's actually revealed that when they shoot the gun, it doesn't just erase whatever was there. It turns it into those anti-memetic maggots that are in every biome.
Yeah.
Every biome.
Every biome.
I love that. It's so good. It's a weird reveal that didn't necessarily need to happen because the invisible worms were already horrifying. But man, this just makes it even better, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, it takes it from just fridge horror about, like, I hate bugs to, like, oh my god, what happened to make all these?
Yeah. What, the weapon itself is described as alien in origin, which implies that there was a lost alien war of some kind, essentially.
Yeah. I fucking love it.
It's so good.
He manages to mostly get out of Site 41. He's on the ground and the phone gets knocked away from him, and somebody being puppeted by 3125 is about to kill him when it realizes Adam is saying some words. He pulls off the orbital laser strike that was done to the fucking gamer's house to just, buy him a bit more time from 3125. And then we get to Tombstone, which is sort of the finale.
Ostensibly the finale. There's a finale and a denouement.
Adam finds the 167 site Vegas room, and inside he sees a pool with a weird big eyeball in it with 4 pupils and a whole bunch of tentacles. And the tentacles are doing something. And the tentacles grab onto him and yoink him into the eyeball.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is Hughes. This is Bart. This is what he's done.
Yep. Mm-hmm. He's become a better Bart.
Yeah. Just like Bart, really.
He really is just like
toe
Bart.
to tip.
Toe to tip. This is a Bart.
The idea is that the germ had also captured some amount of his, like, personality and memories while being this relay. And so even though his body died, the germ on his head survived and essentially carried on his will.
Yeah. like, he dies, but in the sense that, like, there's probably a form of him that is dead, but the body and the rest of him is slowly warping and transforming because of the germ. And so he kind of essentially realizes, like, okay, well, I am the only one who can do this, so I know what I need to do.
He does make himself more tentacles and then use those to make a nutrition bath so he can grow bigger with the germ.
Yeah, so he can grow big and strong.
Yeah. And so Bart didn't have... He built the super weapon, the, like, thought accelerator, but he didn't have the idea he needed to, like, actually accelerate. So he was hoping Marion would show up. That didn't work. But he brought Adam and essentially, like, fused with Adam or, like, absorbed him.
Yeah. Like, when he grabs Adam and throws him into his iris, like, Adam awakens more or less in a barbecue. And the scene plays out with him finding Bart Hughes, and Bart is like, do you want to sit down and have a beer? And they sit down, and I think Adam, like, slowly pieces it together, and Bart gives some of the information, but the short version is, this is, like, the one memory that Bart actually has of Adam, is, like, that they did meet briefly at a barbecue, and so he brought him there to kind of explain everything. And Adam's like, okay, so the world's probably dead. And Bart's like, yep. And he's like, I'm also probably dead and in, like, a different version of reality. And Bart's like, yep. And he's like, okay, so how do I save the world? And Bart's like, well, I'm happy you asked. And he brings out a very familiar needle with a gigantic red Z marked on it. So we do the same thing twice, but it's pretty cool this time, because instead of just remembering everything, because Adam is, like, in the world of memories,
he's like in the noosphere almost.
Yeah, that is kind of how it reads, is that, like, he has literally physically gone to the noosphere. And so, like, he begins remembering everything.
And he remembers Marion.
Yeah.
And their love for each other that kept getting removed from him.
It's such a good moment because, like, he goes backwards further, and then he, like, finds a moment where Marion's about to go off to work or something, and he stops her. And he's like, wait, I found you, holy shit. And she like, picks up really quickly on what's going on because... storytelling, because this is the, like, idealized version of her from his memory.
Marion.
Yeah, it's Marion.
It's Marion. She picks up on these things.
She is the head of the department.
She is shown to pick up on these things very easily. Yeah, but, like, just like House of Leaves, what started as a horror story turns into a love story.
Yeah.
As their love in Adam's, like, undying persistence, and also the fact that he's resistant to antimemetics, has brought him here, where he brought Marion back, not just from death, but double death from the noosphere.
Yeah, it's this really lovely, like, almost sappy, but done in such a brilliant way thing, where, like, the thing that saves them is that Adam goes back and remembers Marion, and so, like, the memory version of Marion that is, like, reconstructed from him taking Class Z's in the noosphere or wherever they are in Bart Hughes' eyes, that is the version that, like, ascends above the noosphere, and, like, she becomes, like, a gigantic angel, or, like, you know, a gigantic idea form.
Yeah, a thought form deity. She becomes, like, the idea of containment and justice.
Yeah.
And protection, which is great. Adam's wife becomes God.
Adam was such a wife guy that he made his wife into a literal god.
Just like Homura.
Exactly.
I can't wait for SCP Antimemetics Division Rebellion, where Adam gets his turn.
Yeah, so
I can't wait for it.
Exactly like Redline, love wins.
Love wins. It's great. I want to make one more dumb comparison, which is that this reminds me a lot of the couples therapy episode of Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Where they summon, like, the version of each other in each other's head, and it creates, like, the Beth xenomorph. But that imagines Jerry as a worm, and then Jerry imagines Beth as, like, a goddess, and that saves the day.
Yeah.
Essentially, Adam is Jerry Smith.
Yeah. Damn.
But I mean, when you think about it...
Yeah, like... I can't wait for someone to make that YouTube video.
But, like, when you think about it...
Like, you're not the most wrong. Like, there are a lot of things you could actually draw on. Of,
I've been more
the
wrong.
The most, like, quote-unquote normal guy who is weirdly in tune with a supernatural thing becomes the savior by imagining his wife to be, there's something there.
I've been more wrong on this podcast before. I'll say that much.
Yeah, you heard of the Less Wrong YouTube channel? Well, this is the More Wrong podcast.
I also think this is a cool interpretation or iteration of the, like, anchor idea that Ara Around had.
Yeah.
That not only is Marion's anchor Adam, but Adam not being able to forget means that he is a super anchor.
Yeah.
He is like a tungsten anchor. Tungsten's heavy, right? I don't know. He's a very heavy anchor in this case, because, like, since he can't forget, he is the perfect pillar of support to base Marion's existence off of. And then the final chapter, the epilogue, Champions of Nothing, is an O5 member, perhaps one involved with the Antimemetics Division in the past, talks about how they've had a gap. Much like the original Ojai incident, there's been a pretty big time gap where they can't remember anything that happened during it. Additionally, said that, like, in space where there was once an empty void or something, there's a new shining star. I love that because, I mean, the star thing, obviously, but the Ojai Church was built around removing stars.
Yeah.
But Marion Ascending created a new one instead. It's the antithesis.
It's basically just like Fallen London. The stars are gods.
Yeah, the stars are the fault. Yeah, I also like it because it is sort of keeping in line of the idea of memories being what makes you human and, like, forgetting being this, like, destructive thing. The god being a star that is created is sort of like creating new memories makes us more human.
Yeah.
Whereas removing memories and removing stars makes us worse. And then it turns out in the end that the Overseer is venting this to 55.
Yeah, which is so good. Such a good bookend.
It's instead of we need to talk about 55, it's we need to talk to 55.
Have we tried giving O55 therapy?
Yeah. And then
men will literally talk to an antimemetic SCP and then forget everything they said, then go to therapy.
Yep. It is definitely funny knowing that, like, he knows he'll forget what he's talked about to 55, so he's just doing it to vent.
Yeah.
And then, as the Overseer gets in his car and drives out from the site, the story shifts in perspective to a peaceful anti-meme. One of 2256, still alive to this day.
Like one of the children.
Yeah.
Explicitly the child of the one that was photographed and immediately died.
Yeah. And it's eating a spider.
It's eating the last of the spiders,
the spiders.
Yep.
It is happy and safe, and the spiders are dead. Hooray. I love it.
That's Antimemetics Division.
So I have a few notes on themes. For one, the noosphere as a concept is very similar to Plato's idea of forms, in Platonic forms. The concept that, like, or the idea that Plato had was that there are forms that are intangible concepts, and people understand and know, like, facets of these forms, but the way that we know these is because we are sort of looking at the same form. It's like goodness is a Platonic concept that is then iterated into multiple things, but they're all under the same sort of umbrella of goodness. The noosphere in general is just like a big database of things that people know or could know, and that's often how it's presented, but the extra conceptual part above the noosphere is much more of a Platonic thing. 3125 in many ways is a Platonic idea of what's often considered like chaos or 5.
Or the number 5.
Which then manifests itself in reality, not directly, but through us seeing only one side of it. Sort of allegory of the cave. You know, allegory of the cave?
Oh, that's the one where you play as 7 people and you have to do, like, 14 different runs to get all the endings.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also think, like, even beyond that, that's just sort of an interesting sort of reference point of comparison. But beyond that, thematically, I kind of love part 2 just because of the, like, it is very sappy, but the ideas of love and memory are so strong that, like, I mean, okay, I don't want to get too emotional, but my dad passed away like 4 years ago. I don't remember. It's been a bit, but I still remember my time with my dad. And while I am sad in many ways, even to this day, I can still draw upon those memories and, have a fond appreciation for them. I can value the times that I did have and the good memories I was able to have. Forgetting all those things would suck.
Yeah.
That memories are, in many ways, not just a way to construct a version of somebody long gone, but they are helpful to the people in the present as well. And I think by literally having that being a feature in the SCP universe, it is just a really well illustrated sort of theme and idea and message. It's a little on the nose in some regards. Like, they're not truly gone. They're still in our hearts. But in this case, they're in the noosphere.
Yeah. I like the idea of the noosphere explicitly because of that. Because, like, the idea of an afterlife that is entirely the memories of people is extremely compelling. The SCP Foundation is already a series that has, like, 700 different afterlives. But, like, the idea of the noosphere, the idea of, like, people are not gone so long as people remember them, but people have to remember them for them to be around, is, I think, a very powerful and, like, meaningful message of, like, to also get personal, as somebody who had his father die over a decade ago at this point. The only things that I feel like I still have are a lot of those memories. And you can take those memories and make something exceptional with them. That's sort of the key, in my opinion, is, like, the fact that the ending of part 2, the fact that, like, the recurring theme of part 2 is people being made into memories and those memories being made into something grander. I think that's salient. I think that's an incredibly important point, both narratively and thematically.
I love so many SCPs where a sort of figurative speech or concept is made completely literal, and this is a beautiful example of that.
Yeah. The last thing I do have to say is that I love this because it is a kind of happy ending. I don't hate the first part because it does kind of have a dour ending. It has like a badass ending of, Marion going like, there is no Antimemetics Division, and then wiping the entire Antimemetics Division to temporarily save the world. That's cool, that's badass, but it's still tainted with the idea of, like, this is a losing fight, which is, the recurring thing we talked about before. But I really love the purpose of the second part, that, like, the most normal guy who is ostensibly so normal that his superpower is seeing things that actually exist.
Yeah, hold on. That's actually a good point.
Yeah. Like, Adam is the world's most normal man who married the world's most badass woman. And he was such a wife guy that he saved the world. And I say all that funnily, but, like, it's good. It's salient. It, like, it has a lot of really good capital T themes of, like, the most standard person being the one to lead the world back to where it needs to be. It's a good message of everyone can save the world, even though it is a message through a story of this one guy can save the world because he loves his wife so much and he's also the only sane person left.
Look, I like emotion.
Yeah.
I like feeling things. If that feeling is a happiness, then that's fine. I could use that sometimes. Also, I love it because, like, SCP is often strictly viewed as a horror or weird fiction, sci-fi, like, project. But so many people have since used it to dive into other genres or other, like, genre fiction And yeah, having a love story told through SCP like this, a like love action story with some horror elements, it still fits. It's still SCP, but it is also an interesting direction that like you don't get from a lot of other articles or series on the website.
I feel like I am not confident enough in my knowledge to say this definitively, but I feel like if you wanted to make a comparison point between Part 1 and Part 2 as two different eras of SCP, where like one was really focused on sort of the, everything is terrible and we're all going to die from all the horrible creatures, and one is sort of like everything is terrible and we are all going to die, but we have to keep fighting because sometimes we succeed. I feel like somebody could make that point and I'm not the person to make it, but like that is kind of a big part of why I love the SCP Foundation. It has changed. It was originally very focused on like the spooky, shadowy government entity that's doing deeply unethical things. And while that is a consistent through line, because it is a community product, it has constantly reshaped itself, constantly interrogated itself, constantly asked itself if that's what it wants to be. And sometimes the answer is yes, we lean into it. Sometimes the answer is no, we lean away from it. But like the process of people coming together to create something so exceptional is just plainly good, is just plainly right with the world.
Communal art is good. Whatever good means, I don't know. I'm just looking at a fucking shadow on the wall.
Yeah. Wait, hang on.
The hedgehog.
Yeah. That blue hedgehog here of all places.
I don't think that's Sonic.
Well, it's been a wonderful October 32nd for all of us.
Yeah. So, thank you for listening. Sorry for this one being pretty late. Real life has been things.
It sure has been.
But you can find us and listen to us on any podcasting platform you like, including however you're listening to this. I mean, we're on YouTube now. We're on Spotify, Amazon, Last FM, all these things I've never heard about, but I'm like, oh, well, if I can distribute it there, then sure, why not?
Personally, I'd rather be on the previous FM.
Really? That old thing? That's old hat.
That's a good point. We should go to the next FM,
Next,
actually.
yes, please. But stick around for this episode. Don't go to the next one yet, because we're going to do our plugs where you can follow us on any of those. Give us a like, give us a rating, give us a comment, give us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you want to see us do next, or just things you think we might be interested in. Or you can follow us on social media at NetSurferPro or netsurferpro.bsky.social. You can follow me on Twitter at Twackaroo, and on Blue Sky at twack.bsky.social, TWAK, and then TWAKAROO, where I post a bunch of shit, especially things that I'm working on, new upcoming projects. Everyone's been talking about fucking Piglet's Big Game. We did an episode on that 2 years ago. Listen to that if you're curious about the new hot game, but also keep an eye out for me talking about it in the future in another project. You can also follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/twack, where I stream.
As for myself, my socials have changed quite a little bit, but you can find me on Blue Sky at galenwilson.bsky.social. That's GALENWILS0N. I post my hot takes and stuff as well. You can find me on YouTube at The Only Galen on YouTube, and a little sneak peek for you here. You can find my personal blog at The Incredible Mr. G. That's theincrediblemrg.com. At the time of this going up, it's probably not fully set up yet, but by the future, that is going to be where I'm posting most of my actual writings. That's right, I'm writing things.
Oh my god, writing. You're not just yapping.
Yeah.
You're tapping the phone while you type things in, or your keyboard. I don't know how you type.
Well, actually, I do it by typewriter, and then I dictate it to my manservant.
So that's still yapping.
Oh, damn it! I'm just yapping again.
And we're gonna keep yapping because I guess Spooky Month is still going.
Yeah. So next week, oh god, what else is there to talk about with the SCP Foundation? So next week on October 47th, we're going to talk about SCP Containment Breach.
That's relevant, right?
Yeah, that's right.